I'm Shalonda Ingram. I'm so honored to hold this space today in community with a dear friend and colleague, Dr. Bauman. I've been fortunate to create an entity called Born Brown, All Rights Reserved. And it's really a healing environment that I created for myself and that I'm learning to offer to others. And so this conversation of radical diversity came up with Dr. Bauman and Johan, who are both allies to me as a BIWOC person, and also as a budding leader in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. Part of what this conversation represents for me today is bringing circles of my life together that have been siloed. So for example, Anna from the Pride Study is a part of my advisor role in the academic medical environment. Ariel VEgosen is a dear long-term friend who I conduct a lot of business and affairs with, and who I call with so many questions about how to hold space in some of the difficult dynamics that come up with the history and legacy of our society. And I'm meeting Syliva Doss through the recommendation of Dr. B. So I'm really healing myself in public, and it's powerful and not always comfortable. So that's what this conversation is, radical diversity. What does that mean to us? How do we come to take on new terms and new ways of being? So we're doing that in community today. And I just want to thank you all for being with us and kind of ground the purpose of our time. And we happen to be doing this on the UN Day of Peace, which is also profound and also intentional. So I wanted to hand it over to Dr. B to welcome us and contextualize our Wellness Week.
Oh, thank you. It's such a blessing to be together. I want to do a simple land acknowledgement that we're on sacred soil, and wherever we are, Indigenous people are the caretakers of the soil, and our ancestors have walked a good path before us, and many of our relatives have fallen off the path, but our goal is to really come back into harmony and come back into care of one another and care of the earth, and really bring forward something that is really our purpose and why we're here. So, acknowledging our space and our hearts and our souls and our vision. So it's really great to be together, and I welcome you all to the forum we're hosting by Bauman Wellness Community.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. B.
Yeah.
So we also have Dior Ashley Brown on the line with us out of the DC area, really supporting the conversation. Again, another aspect of how I'm healing and growing. I'm relatively new to the DC market and learning a lot through the artist community and through the direct connection that Dior offers through the DC Music Summit community. So part of the goal that I have as a member of the Bauman Wellness community and founder of Born Brown is to connect communities that are essential to each other that may not have the skill set to engage with each other. So we're trying that on a little bit today. So that's a little bit about what we're up to and why we're here, and also myself. I wanted to hand it over to Anna to start the introductions, and we'll get to know the panelists a little bit. Oh, and one more note, I just want to say, as much as this is a panel, it's also a community practice. So we want to just unmute ourselves and use the chat, touch base, so that this is not a lecture, it's a community gathering, and we're leveraging technology to make that happen. Hi, Anna.
Hi, so I'm Anna Rescate. I'm the communications specialist at PrideNet, which is part of Stanford University. We currently work on actually 3 studies right now, but I work on 2 studies. I work on the Pride study, which is an LGBTQ plus research study. And I work on All of Us LGBTQ, which is a national study. And we are just the group that focuses on the LGBTQ part of the population. I am in the East Bay, and I don't know what else to say.
No, that's great.
Okay.
That's plenty. Yeah, and we can cruise over to Ariel, and then Sylvia for brief introductions. Yeah.
Beautiful. It's such an honor to be with all of you today. I'm so grateful to be able to be with you and to get to be connected. And I look forward to meeting some of you all in person soon. So I just want to share that I'm deep friends with Shalonda and the founder of Shine Diversity. Shine Diversity is a company dedicated to creating clear pathways to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And we do this work through trainings, consulting, policy writing, assessments, and we really believe in building partnerships with businesses, communities of faith, nonprofits, wellness spaces. And we do this because we know that this is lifetime commitment work. It's not something that can happen overnight. It's actually a deep commitment. And for me personally, I've been facilitating workshops for over 20 years and really in this space of JEDI for a very, very long time, and in this space with Shalonda for a very long time. And so we feel that our friendship is actually this unique component. Like Shalonda says, we actually are healing ourselves while doing this work, and our commitment is overall to justice.
Thanks, Ariel. Sylvia, please share a little bit with us about yourself as well.
Okay. Hi, I'm Syliva Doss, and I've been affiliated with the Bauman community for, I don't know, quite a while, probably 10 years or so, originally actually going to Bauman College to learn nutrition. And just always to be a part of the conversation. You know, I think one thing that I find very honorable and kind of honorable to be a part of with Bauman is that we are always talking about how do we bring people together? How do we bring goodness together? You know, how do we bring peace into food? How do we just all aspects of it? So I'm just happy to be with everyone today and just share some thoughts that I have and hope to get a lot from you guys.
Awesome. And I just want to sort of co-define radical diversity, right? And you know, the terminology that we use is really creating our reality on some level. And I'm curious how these words, radical and diversity, live in the same environment for you all.
So radical diversity, when I hear it, it just sounds very like activist and like,
Yeah.
You know, just breaking down barriers. You know, like that's what comes to mind for me when I heard it, that word term for the first time. And so at the Pride study, you know, one of the things that we do that people consider radical diversity is basically we give back information to the communities that participate. And so medical research has usually, you know, in a way kind of just used people in a way, like everything was going in and nothing was going out. And so a lot of people tend to define us as being, I think, radical in a way, because we make sure to create an environment where people who participate know that they are going to know what their information is being used for. We make sure that we have language that is not just scientific language or research language, so that it's also understood. And that way they can see people that participate and people that don't participate, people that just follow us, can see the impact that research actually has when people are included full circle in the process.
Awesome. Thanks, Anna. How about you, Ariel? How do these words live in your space?
I love these words. I love the words radical diversity. I really connect with that element. So for me, the word radical really just means getting to the root of a problem, getting to the root of a situation, getting to the root of what's really going on. And I come from, my background is I'm Jewish. I am, my family's, Ashkenazi Jewish from Eastern Europe. And a lot of what it means for us in that identity really is about radical justice and getting to the roots of justice. So I was raised in a culture where I was always told it's not just enough to like say give charity or to be like, okay, I see someone's homeless, so I'm going to give them $1. It's like, well, that's helpful to that one person, maybe in a very small way. But really what I was told about what justice is that you have to figure out, why is that person homeless and what are you doing to participate in shifting homelessness? Like, how are you ending that? Right. So yes, and like, yes, you can give someone help and immediate aid and immediate support, but you actually need to get to the root of the problem and be radical in that. So that's like my perspective of what the word radical means in the context of justice and in the context of my background. And when I think about that in the context of diversity, it means we have to understand what is the root, right? Like, where are we coming from? What does it mean to actually create diversity? What is the root of that word? What is the origin? What does it mean to go as deep as possible to create the spaces that we want? And I think what's interesting about the word diversity is I've actually seen that word shift and change over time and shift and change in people's mindsets, right? And I want people to understand that diversity literally means all of us. It's actually an all one message. And I think a lot of times people think, oh, people still think diversity in a way that means that there's still a dominant culture and everyone else is just trying to play in that dominant culture. And I think we need to like really move away from that concept and move away from hearing, oh, diversity just means I have a token person of color, or I have a token Jewish person, I have a token queer person. So like, see, we're diverse. And it's like, or see, we did the work. And it's like, oh no, that's not the work. The work is we need to be radical. We needed to be at the root. We needed to look around and see that we're all here and we're all together. And it's really about an all one vision.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for that. Syliva Doss, what's your view of these two words? How do they live in your space?
Well, it's a very provocative term, I think.
Okay.
And I'll tell you where I'm coming from. Over the last, first off, I spent a lot of time working with business, working with corporate business. I worked in corporate for many, many years. And over the last year, me and another woman, we founded a think tank to study, understand, come up with some kind of solutions or help for the impact of racism in the work, the impact of racism on health in the workplace. So what I find just sitting in that space is that the term radical diversity means something to people who understand diversity and care about it and want to be one and want to get together. And for everyone else, it means a lot of, what Ariel, talked about as, oh, we're diverse. Okay. Without the understanding of how do we make this inclusionary? How do people feel like they're included? How do people feel comfortable when they're there? How are we, paying attention to the gaps around equity and essentially, creating a place of belonging, which in some of my interviews, I had one gentleman said, God, we've got to move from this silent empathy to this vocal compassion, or actionable compassion. So I guess that's how I would just summarize radical diversity is moving into a very active, compassionate place.
And so my next opportunity for sharing is around how do you practice this in your life? And like, what about your life demands this of you, right? Like some people get to choose to engage with this conversation. And by that, I mean, just by having friends who are different or choosing to engage with people at work. And then there's the other extreme where, I just don't engage with people who aren't like me. And even inside of those extremes, we still have people who wear a size 9 shoe and people who wear a size 6 shoe, right? So we are not ever missing an opportunity to bask in and take on what diversity has to offer us. So how does this live in your actual day-to-day life? From it could be anything like being a parent or we just want to get some brass tacks and some human experience about this.
For me, it's kind of like I think it's more like who I am because I've never found a group of people that are like me. So if it's not, if I'm around Latinx people, they might not be queer, or they might not be in interracial relationships, or they might not be into the same, music, or like, I think I've always, the way I grew up is I just naturally ended up just having a lot of diverse friends, diverse tastes. And for me, it's like, I guess when we're talking about healing journeys, like I'm definitely on a healing journey we're all on healing journeys, but for me, it's kind of just finding peace with the fact that I always feel different.
Mm.
And so I naturally kind of have to have different groups and different kinds of people that I talk to, because each one kind of, I relate to each different people on different levels. And so there's no way for me to really find, or at least I have not found really a group that I feel is like, oh, like we're all the same.
Exactly. Awesome.
So I think that's kind of like, I think it just is my life in a way.
Awesome. Thank you. How about you, Ariel?
I relate to that so much. I relate to everything you just said. I feel really, really similar, which is that I often do feel like the other, or different, or out there. And I actually really appreciate that about myself. And I appreciate that in the spaces that I hold. And I really value the fact that I have so much diversity in my life. Like I have, people of all age ranges that I'm really close with, people of all races, people of all genders, people of all sexualities. There's an exercise that Shalonda and I do in one of our trainings, which is called the Trusted Five, where you the first part of the exercise is you just write down 5 people that you feel you are incredibly close to, people that you would celebrate with, people that you would mourn with, people that you would go to in an emergency, your 5 most trusted people. And I noticed that in that activity, whenever we do that, most of our participants end up with 5 people that are very similar to them. Like maybe they all went to the same schools, or the same education system, or the same racial background, or the same religion background. And when I look at my 5 people, it is like everybody is very different, right? Like there's not one age range happening in those 5 people. There's not one race happening in those 5 people. It's like, I just feel really blessed in the sense that this is really, diversity really has always been a part of my life, and it's a core factor as to who I am. And I feel blessed that when I think about my most closest people, they are coming from different worlds and different perspectives. And one of the things I value is also being able to bring everyone together. I've always had this strong desire to get everyone into the same room, or invite everyone to the same party, or, like when I throw my birthday parties, it's just like it's like worlds. Like there's people from all over the world literally coming together. And that's what I love. I love being able to bring people together, or to be like, wow, this is really unexpected. Like I would never, people are always like, I would never imagine that I'd be in the same room as this person, or that we'd have these same, like, we're so different. And yet here we are, like, thanks for bringing us together. And I also value the idea of showing people like, yes, we all get to have our differences and celebrate that. And there's something that we always have in common too, right? Like there's always a way to find out where is the similarity even in our differences, or where's our common ground, or what can we connect on?
Trying to create spaces for people to be able to have those conversations, to feel comfortable having those conversations. I teach a graduate course, and it's HR. Why HR shouldn't be talking about diversity is beyond me. I know I'm not teaching a diversity class, but it's important. And I am very bold about setting the table so that people can feel that, oh, we can have that conversation there. And to that extent, last night, my husband was making a posting. We also years ago bought Vital Scoop from Bowman College. And so he's making a posting about, Hispanic Heritage Month. And it's like, well, do we call it Hispanic? Do we call it Latin? Do we call it Latinx and all this? And I said, well, we had this whole conversation in our classroom, and I'm thinking about it. It's like, we had this whole education and conversation in our classroom with a multitude of different people of different races from different places around the world, even, so that everyone could understand what are the nuances around that. And I think just to be able to create those spaces, even among what I consider some friends of mine who they know me, but they don't necessarily know that part of me.
Sure.
But now they know a lot more about that part of me.
Mhm.
And so it's speaking up in a way, just speaking up, being vocal, being clear.
Awesome. Well, I want to ask one question that's very specific to wellness and the self-care aspects of this type of experience of having a diverse life, right? Making that choice. And frankly, some of the confrontations that come with choosing the life that you're choosing and choosing inclusion and belonging and evolution for humanity. And, as we say, just not letting things slide or slip under the rug when you have these opportunities to make a difference. So how do you all care for yourselves as you're engaging, as you're at the Pride study on the stress, the work that you're doing, all that? What are some of your self-care tactics, right? So that you can be well and continue to be of service.
It's definitely still a work in progress, of course.
Sure, yeah.
And then before the Pride study, I worked at Planned Parenthood, Northern California. And so doing communications for these two orgs, you get a lot of hate sometimes. And so, at Planned Parenthood, you get a lot of visual graphic images. And at the Pride study, it's similar, but not really. Like that is more like physical, like what. And then here, like they'll send like a poop picture, like something like that. So still very jarring, still very traumatic. Like if I wake up in a good mood and I'm looking at my daughter and I'm like, life is great, and then here are these comments. So I have to give myself space to kind of like just, I really have to give myself space and really try to not feel like this is the world, and kind of remind myself and kind of look to the people I know or my coworkers or the people or seeing the number of people that are in the Pride study, or seeing the number, for at Planned Parenthood, like how many people donate, and just really saying like, these are not the majority, they're just the loudest. And I think that's where radical diversity comes in, is that we have to be louder, in terms of saying peace and love needs to be louder than hate and fear. And so I think, I just have to give myself space to kind of like remember that. And that can be taking a walk, or just watching something funny, or watching some groundbreaking show, or reading, a great book, or just those kind of things, just to get myself into a different, more positive, or just, kind of space. Or even if it's not a positive space, a space that is letting me know that there are still good people in the world, I guess.
I love this question, because I do think it really reminds me of when you're on the airplane and they say you have to put your mask on first before you can help those around you. I do think that our self-care is really important. And I also agree with what was just said, that it is always a work in progress. I think something that I see even in myself as an activist is that there are times that I definitely overwork myself, or stretch too far, or push too hard. And I think that happens because everything feels so urgent. It feels like we're up against so much. And part of what I try to remind myself when it feels that urgent is that these struggles have been around for so long, and that my ancestors were in these struggles, and that there'll be a generation after me in these struggles, and that I'm doing the best and as much as I can for this time period that I'm on this planet. And I look to my traditions to help me with my wellness. So I definitely, inside of the Jewish context, there is a lot that can support rest and wellness. I think about Shabbat, which is like a weekly practice of taking time to actually not even be around technology, taking your 24 hours away from your phone, away from the computer. And I don't get to do it every week, but the times that I do, it feels really powerful. And this year is like this really special year in the Jewish calendar that happens every 7 cycles, which is like the entire year is supposed to be focused on what does it look like to rest? What does it look like to renew? What does it look like to give back to the land? And so I've been really thinking about that in my own sense. Like we're about to be approaching the harvest holiday. And so I've been thinking a lot about what does it mean to be restorative in my own practices, in my own body? And how does that connect to restorative practices with the earth? And so to really think that like even my self-care is actually deeply connected to environmental justice, and that this really is all one thing. And rather than seeing like, oh, when I need to do self-care or wellness, that's like somehow being selfish. I don't think that framing doesn't serve me and doesn't work. Like I really have to frame this as, this is actually part of the path. This is part of justice. Our wellness, our health, our healing is a huge and important part of this. Plus, if I don't take care of myself in this body, then it's like, there's just no way I'm going to be able to do this kind of intense emotional and physical labor of justice.
One of the ways that I'm really learning is keeping fire as a indigenous practice. I've been doing that in my yard, and it's incredible what I learn, what I contemplate, how I experience being soothed. And just like I know exactly what's going on and how to be in that environment. It's really quite powerful. So thank you for lifting that up.
What I think of healing and just the well-being part of it is kind of being two different things.
Absolutely.
Now, actually.
Yeah.
And I make time for myself, and I'm not good at it every week. I try to be good at it most days, and that involves I'm going to get up, and I kind of started to plan out my day like that. I don't start before this time because I need a couple hours to meditate, do yoga, exercise, just not have to be bothered with a lot of the things of the day or the week, and eat and then go forth. And for me, doing that regularly and always having something positive that I'm reading. And oftentimes that comes to, I like to listen to it. So I'll listen to it when I'm walking or whenever as I get opportunities.
So one other question I wanted to ask is around your vision for the future with radical diversity, just before we open up the conversation to the community, to really just in a future fulfilled, right? Like if you were just to invent this right now, like what are some of the ways of being that would be in this radical space of diversity? And of course, I'm putting you on the spot. Of course, we're inventing this. It's part of a practice for us to be community of practice leaders to say, another view already exists. Like we are aware of these challenges and confrontations, and we're holding this out here into the future. And that's how we engage and participate. Like what is in that future of radical diversity?
So for me as a mother, my daughter's just 3 right now. And so for me, when I think of the future of radical diversity, I think of how, I think of her. I think how is she going to be able to go through life? How is she going to be able to go through spaces? And to me, my hope is that, she's not going to have issues with the fact that she has 2 mothers. She's not going to have issues with the fact that she's, mixed race, and, that those things are going to be honored and celebrated. And she's also going to know history, like an overall, like a diverse history, not just what we've been taught in school where so much stuff is erased. So for me, it's like, when I think of the future, it's always revolving around her, and just the main thing is, is she going to be safe? Is her heart and soul going to be safe? And so when I think in the future, that's my hope, is that, it will be, but we never know.
Yeah, I love that. In the future, our children will be safe. Thank you, Anna.
Yeah, thank you so much. That is such a beautiful vision. I I'm with you on that vision completely. And I'm going to add to the vision and say that when I envision a future of radical diversity, I think that everything really would be different. It really would shift. The way culture would shift, because we've been in, there's like a way that certain cultures are prioritized or given dominance. And I think in real radical diversity, what would happen is all that would just be different. And there would be a space for people to really reach their real human potential. And we wouldn't be told at birth, oh, you're this gender, or you're this race, or you have to behave or act or be a certain way, or this is what your ability means or doesn't mean, or this is what you're qualified or not qualified to do. It just wouldn't look like that. We would all be, given an amazing amount of love and unconditional love. And we would be told, try, like, you're talented. We're all talented. Let's all see where our human potential can take us. Like, no one's going to tell you you can't be in this role because of your background. No one's going to tell you that this job is not for you, or that these ideas, or that you're not allowed to do something. Instead, we'd all be given the space to really be who we are and the space to shine. And that would all be welcome. And if someone's doing something that looks different or unique, that would be uplifted. And if the cultures that are often ignored or erased or not talked about, those would have space to be in the center. And those stories would be stories that we all get to know collectively. So what I see right now is that there's been like a dominant narrative, and somehow everyone knows certain cultures' stories, but not other cultures. So I want a world of radical diversity in which we all start to know each other's stories, and we all hold each other's stories and participate in each other's stories and connect to them.
Mm-hmm. Even if you calculate this out, right around 50%, and that's working like regular hours, 50% of our time has to do with work. It has to do with getting there. It has to do with doing the work. It has to do something with work. And that has a significant influence on us as people, has a significant influence on our health and our thinking. And, in my future, when people go to work, it should feel like a belonging environment. I find that now we adapt, depending on where we're working, we tend to have to adapt to the work environment. And it's one thing to adapt in terms of speed or expectation. It's another thing to need to adapt as a person into the environment, so that you will be accepted and feel comfortable and feel like you can be a part of it.
I love this future. So
Can I just
thank you
jump in
for sharing. Yeah, please.
I wanted to jump into the future that's really important that I want to share, which is the earth, right? Like I want a future where radical diversity also includes non-human beings, right? So the animals and the plants and the trees, and that we value those as important as we value our own life, because this actually is how we have life, like water and food and growing our own food and caretaking and tending. And that would be a major shift as well. I think the disconnection from earth, the way we've taken ourselves almost like out of that is the exact opposite of radical diversity, right? So I think looking to nature for our ideas and looking to nature for what's possible.
I love it. This future is amazing. And I'm excited to invite our attendees, our guests, our community leaders to share about the future. In the space of radical diversity, what would you put in the future, right? Like not so much as a Q&A, but really adding to this vision that's being shared, so that we can open that space and share. Let's hear from the rest of the community here.
Thank you so much for this, Shalonda, and thank you for inviting me. I'm so glad to be here. Listening, everything was so beautiful. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good. It was meditative, honestly, for myself. With diversity, I really want people to see people of color as diversity, if that makes sense. So, that being that we do live in a space where white privilege is exalted, or supremacy is exalted. And I'd really love to see that also people of color can represent that diversity, and it be seen, and it be accepted, not only when it's beside a person who is white. I would love to see diversity be very intentional and be accepted in that space. And what I love about the radical statement is that I'd really love for everyone to be intentional about accepting, like you said, all shapes, sizes, and colors. Like when you were in the example of the shoe size, that like we be radical in the media about different types of bodies, different types of, shoe sizes, different types of looks, I was just watching recently an Instagram or TikTok where a young lady was talking about the reasons why you can't bring your authentic self to work. I think that duality hurts everyone. And I do understand that you need to be diplomatic in how you are presenting yourself and how you're communicating. So there's kind of like a balanced and fair space at work. But for people to have to kind of have that duality, I can see, where mental illness can take into play, or trying to keep up with a certain image or look, or how that could re-evolve even in a diverse space, where the same conflict we're having now could re-evolve. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important for people, when I think of diversity, real, true diversity is accepting people exactly where they are, exactly who they are, as long as it doesn't harm anyone else.
I love this. And Dior, I just want to acknowledge that the conversation of decentralizing any group from the point of comparison is really powerful and essential, right? Because I believe in a creator that is so creative that it's all good, right? And that everything is so intentional. I've been gardening, and you've actually been to the house. You've seen this garden, and I never hear my rutabaga have a problem with my carrots. Okay, I'm totally learning from garden, and I've not ever seen this with any other being. So I just really acknowledge what you're sharing, and if we were to just look outside of the human context, as a way of learning and as a way of trusting and having faith and example, I think we would really accelerate this conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Were you going to share, Dr. B?
I love this conversation in this group. And, I think it's evolving. It's an uplifting, it's an enlightening kind of place to be. And I think it's a place that invites others to join with us. Mm-hmm. And at all levels, beginners, intermediates, blah, blah, blah. Nobody's more than intermediate anyway. And for me, welcoming new friends and new backgrounds and new stories and new flavors is the most exciting thing. Mm-hmm. And, we're spiritual beings living a human existence. Mm-hmm. We're not human beings trying to be spiritual. Mm-hmm. We're not caught up in our identity. We are here to do the change the Creator needs us to do. Mm-hmm. And we're taking that on as a mission, as a way, and doing it joyfully. Mm-hmm. Because if we can hold that joyful space of doing the work, it's attractive. Mm-hmm. And then, more and more people just dropping out of conventional life is not a bad thought. Mm-hmm. Because it's not working. It's not working. It's not working for hardly anybody. Mm-hmm. And if all those people who had all the power all of a sudden had nobody consuming their goods or listening to their news or believing their BS, they would join us and they would go, it really isn't working for me either, but that's what I learned. But there's a system collapse that's in the midst. And so rather than going, holy cow, it's the end of the world, it's just the end of that epoch and that era as we know it. And so we are the forerunners. We are the harbingers. We are the world, and that message is not being shared enough. So it's not a pretentious message, it's a humble message. But this current reality that people are stuck in, they can be more and more unstuck and be less dependent on handouts, because those handouts are really cheap buy-ins to keep following a system that is flawed. So that's why we're building communities of service and of practice.
Yeah, it's critical. And things like affordable nutrition and other ways of being, so that people can normalize supporting each other, normalize saying, oh, hey, I'm on this budget and I still get to care for myself, so that it's not a one thing or the other type of scenario. It's inclusive. And I really appreciate Dior's comments and yours around meeting people where they are and having that be a fantastic place to work from. And I think one of the things Anna mentioned in the future is the safety of children. And, it should be okay to have someone care for your child and have an understanding of what sugar is and all of that. So I can just really see the continuity that is available in this future that we're creating. Chris, let's hear from you about the future.
I really loved the things that Dior was saying, because it got me to think about what diversity could be in a different way. Because you hear so much conversation about Black and white, and even what Ariel was saying about being Jewish and being different, and even Anna, about working for an organization that has a lot of polarization, and creating a beautiful future for your daughter. Just my exposure to all these things has helped me to appreciate the diversity. So part of what I need to do is to open up my mind even more to understand how would you actually create a world where not just the diversity is honored, but that we actually view it as a way forward, because it's a way forward. Because if we don't do that, the polarization that's happening in every level of our society and everything is just going to overwhelm us. But by us learning to consult together, learning to act together, reflecting on the mistakes that we made and also the successes together, and then deciding what a new path might be together. But it's not in the way that I think. And that's what is this whole kind of conversation is opening me up to, that it's not what I've envisioned or think, that I have to stop all of that and see what really is and see what can we actually do. So thank you. I just am really getting a lot of good mind tools.
That's it. It's a community of practice, y'all. We want things that we can implement, right? Because no matter what the strategy is, without trying it on and having safe places to do that, we don't know what works, right? And so it's really great that we can create a world and test things out together. And frankly, have the capacity to build the capacity, right? So we don't love every experience we have. And we're grateful for that work, having it, right? And that we can actively grow and evolve. And and be the carrot or the rutabaga and have it be all good, right? And just say, oh, wow, I can grow right next to you. Who knew?
My name is Vidhu, and actually, Ariel, I know you from Daniel Banks, who is one of our mutual dear friends.
Yeah, it's great to see
Daniel.
you.
Amazing.
You know, in the theater, like I naturally, since the time I migrated to this country a pretty long time back, you know, I was just telling stories that weren't really being told. And so I'm continuing to do that, and I'm doing less theater, actually. I think, but I'm often on, you know, like a dramaturg on a part of a creative team where I'm sort of the resident BIPOC artist who, you know, try to be a cultural resource for the team. So I do feel that's an important role in the arts, is, you know, whose story is it and how does power get shared amongst people? I think that's really important. I think building bridges and friendships, really, to me, it's just about sweetness and warmth and friendship, not so much about rhetoric and not so much about political fights even. You know, like I just gravitate towards people who naturally create a sense of welcome and belonging. And those are the spaces that I love, and which is why I love, you know, Ed and Chris for the longest time. I'm part of their entourage for a very long time, because they gather these lovely people around them. And I think it's just important for me, and I'm saying this like not feeling very fully embodied today, but usually for me, like I have a breath and meditation practice from my community, which is a spiritual community called Art of Living. And when I do that, then I'm naturally present. And one of the first things when we first greeted each other in our very first course, we would say, you know, I belong to you. And so I just want to say that to you, like, I belong to you. And I'm actually looking forward to getting to know more of the folks here and appreciating this conversation. I've been doing a project around the wildfires. Some of my artist friends lost their retreat center in the fires. And so that's been an interesting project to me. You know, like those are the projects I want to do, like go, well, okay, so now there's 33 burnt acres, and can we actually heal this land, or is this a fantasy? Like, we don't have the answers. So to me, it's been very healing to go to that land and say, okay, this is not, fires and climate change is not something out there. Like, it's right here in Northern California on the West Coast. It's real. And then the next generation, I'm also part of a blended family, you know, sort of a multi-generational, sort of across culture, blended family, raising a kid in a very sort of, I would say predominantly sort of a homogenous, affluent environment. So it's sort of like, how do we raise this kid? And so she continues to be a global citizen, like I am a global citizen. I just can't get enough of the world. You know, the world is bigger than the United States. In the United States, there are massive culture wars happening. Likewise, in India, that I grew up in, and other countries that my family lived in Jamaica, in the Pacific, in Afghanistan, in East Timor, in the UK, or, you know, places like that. And, you know, there's culture wars and wars of class and race and caste happening everywhere.
I was looking at the, you know, when did we as a human species start judging other people by the color of their skin, which was always strange to me. But it started 15th, 16th century. And humanity, so we have a 5 century of undoing the wrong thing. But as a human species, we have a capacity to be one, which was up to that point. So from broader perspective, United States has an opportunity, if you wish, to lead the world, because nowhere else in the globe you have people from all over the world, different countries, different culture, like here, and define what the diversity means. So I'm looking at as an opportunity, but I'm also practical and pragmatic. There's a 5th century, 6th century of undoing. So there's a lot of healing that needs to happen. So if we put in that perspective, it will not be disappointing if we are making a progress as we wish. We are one step at a time healing the planet in the way that needs to be healed. And we know that as a human being, we have a capacity to do so because we have, for 16 centuries before that, showed that we can, right? That's what I'm getting from all of you guys.
And then Dior, yeah, let's hear from you.
Yes, I wanted to say that I love when we open up to making this about healing the world as well. And some of the things that came to mind when VEdu was speaking was that I feel like if we can make remedial the caste systems and colorism and race, we can empower people and therefore they will be able to see the options to contribute to areas that for change. Because I know in some areas of the Black community, those people are, people are still weighted and oppressed by these racial systems. And so they don't even see opportunity to, I'm going to put the environment first, when it may be the basis of my skin that I don't even understand what that means to recycle if I'm just going to get the resources. Or there is a land of, a whole rainforest that needs to be protected because right now it's under fire, because my priority is how am I even going to thrive in this world based on my physical, you know what I'm saying? And so I feel that if we can get past those things and see where that has burdened us, we will really have the freedom to, this is just, me.
In our future that we're creating, yes.
Yeah, that we're creating. And thank goodness this is a part of it, having the uncomfortable conversations to raise humanity's vibration.
First, I just want to again thank everybody for coming and really in the spirit of creating community. It's not only during this particular occurrence, but I would really encourage everybody to become part of the BaumanWellness.co Mighty Networks community, because we want to have, as everybody knows, we're going to be having another wellness circle in December for the winter solstice. But in between, in October, November, we want to have these, to be in community and have these conversations. So the best way we can do that is through the BaumanWellness.co. And I'll just ask Christina to put in the link for, it's just BaumanWellness.co. So that's a way to continue the conversations. And again, the whole sort of vision of Bauman Wellness is really to expand the definition of wellness beyond just the individual, beyond just the family, beyond just the community, beyond just the institution, to include the planet. And so to take this word and really expand it, even though we know that it has been co-opted, it has been greenwashed, it has been sold products and stuff, but we think that there's a place to broaden that definition. So really encourage and invite you.
Awesome. Thank you, Johan. And if there are any other opportunities for community healing, please feel free to share them. I know that Dior and I are working on a project here in DC that is specific to a venue and to DC music artists focused on healing. Dior, are you open to sharing a little bit about that?
Yes. So I should have mentioned that I have a nonprofit, DC-based nonprofit. We do not have our 501c3 status yet. We have applied. We have a fiscal sponsor now. And what we're doing is empowering creative entrepreneurship. we want artists to learn how to thrive. I learned many stories in the past where artists, especially those of color, were not given the resources or not guided well towards understanding retirement, or how they do a LLC, their own business for tax write-offs. So I came up with this nonprofit so I can empower more musicians, more creatives, just to get their business acumen together. So thank you. We have connected with a event called Down in the Reeds. So it'll be at Walter Reed Compound. I know you're familiar with that, Dr. Bauman.
Yeah, I'm a DC boy. I was born in Walter Reed.
Okay, so
yeah, no lie. I came out right there.
Yeah.
I lived on 16th and Calorama Road.
Oh yeah, that's the best.
That's where I got my culture right there.
That's the Gold Coast.
Meridian Hill Park. That's where I met everybody. And then I went, that's the world, right? This is not like suburb.
That's real diversity right there. It's beautiful. And so there's going to be a healing event. DC Music Summit will be there, and we're going to have healing conversations through music. So live performances, deep dives from 12 to 5, and a DJ spinning uplifting music and meditation. It's completely free. It'll also be live streamed, so you all enjoy from the comfort at your home on the weekend. And I'll make sure you get all of the information.
Yeah, let us know.
Awesome. We'll make sure to get the DC Music Summit connected with our circles so that we can really make sure that you have your take advantage, Dior, of the link in the chat so that we can really accelerate our efforts here and truly do some of the self-care by asking our friends and community members for assistance. Yeah.
And I just want to add one thing, and I had mentioned earlier that I have a think tank and we're focused on the impact of racism on health in the workplace. And we have moved through our ideation phase and are now looking at not what can we implement, but actually doing the implementation. And so that'll be happening in the fall. And if anyone has any interest in that, please reach out to me.
My name is Ruth Ann. I'm from Sebastopol. I just want to thank everybody for this really great conversation. I feel like I've gotten a little grounding here. And I love the part about taking care of ourselves as we walk this path, because this is something I'm not very good at. I'm learning to do at my advanced stage now. I also like somebody said, I think it was Dior, how can I thrive in this world? How can I thrive in this world? And that means everybody. And uncomfortable conversations raise humanity's vibrations. That just hit me right in the heart. And all through all this, these thoughts kept coming to my mind that healing happens at the grassroots. Movement started at the grassroots. This is a movement. We don't have to all belong to the same organization or look at things exactly the same way. But I feel the heart of everybody here. And I'm sure most of the people in all the diverse groups that you come from must be really wanting the same things. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing with us, Ruth Ann. It's a true honor to hold space in this configuration. It is also powerful for me to heal in public with you all today and to bring my worlds and circles together. And I just pray you a beautiful rest of the Wellness Week. We are here, we are living this, it is real, and we are doing it together right now. Create an awesome afternoon, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Many blessings.
Thank you all so much. This was so great.
And we'll do it again soon. We'll be back.
Yes, thank you.
Everyone.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Groundbreaking.
All right. Take care. Be well.
Dior, thanks for signing up for Mighty Networks. I just approved you.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
my wife is from DC too, so the next time we're down there, we'll
You will
catch up
be
with you in
taken
July.
care of. Let me know. I know everything, so I can take you everywhere.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you guys. Be awesome.